For this last video, we are going to talk about peace. The name that you were presented with this week is Yahweh Shalom, and that means the Lord is peace, or the Lord is my peace. And we're going to talk about that tonight, and then just kind of wrap up this study. We see this name occur in Scripture as Yahweh, or the angel of the Lord, which you guys have been delving into study on that in itself. But we see Yahweh appear to Gideon and basically says to this lowly farmer, hey, listen, I've chosen you, and you are going to lead my people against the Midianites. And through a series of questions which you've dug into, we see that Gideon experiences peace. And you know, Shelley, I can attest to the fact that true peace comes whenever I take an issue to God and talk to Him about it, and you know, lay out my questions and kind of say, but Lord, what about this? Which is exactly what we see Gideon do, and Yahweh in His compassion just continually reassures Gideon, and he says, but I'm with you, and you're going to be able to, because I know that you're a mighty warrior, and all of those things. And this is a perfect example to us, but one that sometimes we don't always remember or practice.
Well, I think it's important to start back, just like you said. You have an issue, you take it to God. And I think that that's the first step in understanding true peace that comes from God. Having that encounter, well, having the relationship, and then having that encounter face to face. It even talks about that in the scripture with Gideon, that Gideon had that face to face contact with the angel of the Lord, and that is the first step in experiencing the peace that he experienced, and that we ultimately would experience.
Absolutely. You know, so many times though, in our carnality or just our human nature, we try so many other methods. What do you think are some of the most prevalent methods that you see people turning to, rather than just running straight way to God and asking Him for help and guidance and those things that we know we should do, but yet sometimes they seem to be our last option?
Yeah, I think that in our human nature we take the path of least resistance, and usually that is entertainment, just to distract us for a moment, or we may schedule a vacation to get, you know, a refresher, or we take time off of work, or you know, we try to go do this or that or something else, and it's really, it all boils down to just trying to distract ourselves from the issue or from the situation, when in all actuality, if we just went to God on our knees in prayer or to His Word and sought peace in that manner, that would be so much more effective than these other methods of entertainment or just distractions in general.
And you know, we've said over and over again, every time we get behind this camera, we keep talking about covenant relationship. And you know what? Everything that you just said points back to that. And it's not just that reading the Word equates with peace. It's that reading the Word is intimate relationship with God. It's how we converse with Him. It's how He converses with us. And that is relationship. And when we get on our knees in prayer, it's not that we automatically feel peace just because we prayed, and that if you pray, you'll have peace. It's the process of prayer, and how prayer is engaging in that covenant relationship that God has offered to us, and it's that produces peace in our lives. And so again, we see that even though we're studying out Yahweh Shalom, which Yahweh is a compound that is in a lot of these names, but we see that it is all going back to that desire that God has for us to be in relationship with Him, and that really all of these benefits that we've talked about are contingent on our engaging in the relationship that He's offered.
And there again, it's just one more layer to God's character. I think, you know, we started out with Yahweh and El Shaddai and El Ra'i, and we're just keep on putting more layers on God's character. And I think that with each name, we just are building on who He is and who He wants to be to us. And it all starts with that covenant relationship. Absolutely. In order for us to understand who He is.
Absolutely. Well, we definitely hope that you have enjoyed this series and that you have felt God drawing you closer to Him as you have studied about Him. And not just studied about Him, but you have been engaging with Him as you have done your homework and opened up the scriptures and read His Word. It's not just that you're learning about Him. That is how He engages with you. And I hope that as you have done that, you have heard His voice and that He has impressed upon you just whatever it is that you were in need of. Maybe it was encouragement. Maybe He has challenged you to realign some things in your lives. Whatever that could have been, it is God engaging with you, and that has been the hope of our efforts here, that you would draw closer to God and know Him more through relationship. And we just want to thank you again for being a part of this study. We are so honored to be able to bring you this, and keep digging. You know, this small study online here has only covered 8 of more than 20 names in the Old Testament alone. And then you turn to the New Testament, and there are so many other names and titles given to Jesus, who is God, who robed Himself in flesh and came to earth. And so basically all of those names, where you're studying names from the Old Testament or you're looking at names in the New Testament, they are all describing that same God. And this is just a small drop in the bucket of what He reveals about Himself as you look at the names that He's given us in His Word. And so we encourage you to keep digging and to keep studying and keep expecting God to show up every time you open up the pages of His Word.